So we're really excited today to be joined by two lovely ladies, and we are going to be talking about a topic that I think this conversation really needs to be had, doesn't it? And that is building better relationships and how collaboration between conveyancers and estate agents really benefits everyone. So with us in the studio, we have got Michelle Oliver, who is a director at Aconveyancing. And then dialing in, we have got Claire Chambers at Chambers Estates and Letting Agents. So we've got the two sides here, obviously working in collaboration, but we just thought it'd be really good to have a conversation and hear, you know, insights from both your points of view. So should we just dive straight in with this one?
Yeah.
So this is about building better relationships. So Claire, I would love to start by asking, how would you describe the relationship between conveyancers and estate agents? And be as honest and open as you like.
Honestly, it's a fairly volatile relationship. For those that we work very closely with, it's seamless and it works very well. For those that we don't work very regularly with, then it's quite difficult. It's a difficult market at the moment. It's extremely stressful, and trying to get an update for a client at the moment, I would say, is 90% of every agent's bugbear at the moment. Ultimately, the client comes to us, and if we then can't get an update from their solicitor or our client's solicitor, ultimately we've got nothing to go back to that client with. We almost then become the enemy as such, because we can't provide them with what they're asking for. So yeah, if you've got a great solicitor to work with, the job is a dream, but ultimately on the flip of that, it can be the opposite end of the scale.
So in terms of that scale then, what would you describe or define as, you said, a great solicitor, compared to then if you didn't have such a great relationship with another solicitor? What differentiates the two?
So we work very closely with Aconveyancing, for example. We tend to have one conveyancer that will deal with predominantly all of our cases. That's one call, one email. We have that relationship there and we help each other. Whereas the opposite end of the scale, we perhaps could try a solicitor numerous amount of times over a 4-week period, for example, and have zero response in that time. So it's really frustrating when we're struggling to get any form of communication. And I think really that's the key. A great conveyancer will communicate and we help each other. We're not the enemy. Whereas the opposite end of the scale for me is we are the enemy. They don't want to talk to us. We're not their client, but we're just there to help. And I think there's a very fine line there where perhaps some conveyancers think we're a bit of a headache, we're a bit of a nuisance, and we're almost kind of trying to check what they're doing, but that's not what we're doing. We're just trying to progress. But I think it's very difficult for that message to come across.
So that was great, like loads to unpack there. So communication being key, collaboration being key, and just having that understanding that you're in this together. You're both working towards the same target. You face the same pressures from clients, especially today, like you mentioned, the particular challenges and difficulties that you face today. So Michelle, can we bring you in there? What are your thoughts on what Claire was just saying?
Like, where do I start? So I think
I feel like this could be more of a therapy session.
So I think historically the relationship between conveyancers and estate agents is pretty poor, and I think the problem is a lot of conveyancing departments are part of solicitors' firms, whereby they have multi-departments, and a lot of the partners and directors within that company don't work in conveyancing, don't understand conveyancing, don't understand the process, the stress, and ultimately very often they have a head of department that's running that department, that's running it single-handedly, who's overworked, generating the panel fees, like are very often doing panel work, heavy volumes, and aren't able to provide that level of service And ultimately, it's all about the client's journey, it's all about the client's experience, and making sure that from instruction to completion, that their journey is as less stressful as possible. Very often, I know I don't fee earn as much as I used to, but previously, before when I was fee earning, you know, I was Claire's main. I used to do all of the Chambers Estates work. And
So you two have worked together?
Yeah, we've worked together for probably about 2.5, 3 years. And I think, you know, right from the outset, we both had the same goal, you know, the same ethics, and you know, and ultimately we wanted to provide that level of service to clients. So I think that's where we've always worked really, really well together. And Claire actually sold my house for me.
Oh, amazing. So actually then, because you have, the two of you have actually worked together and you've worked well together, it seems. So you touched on it just then. What would you both say, and Michelle, maybe you can go into a little bit more detail with like your working relationship. What would you say is like the one thing that has enabled you two to work and collaborate?
Probably communication, just picking up the phone and having that line of communication, and working together to make sure that any issues or anything that needs to be resolved is done together and bringing it to a satisfactory conclusion.
Perfect. Claire, what about you?
Yeah, it's great that I could pick up the phone to Michelle and have a conversation. You know, where we do get updates off other conveyancers, it is very much a couple of bullet points. Thanks very much, bye. And yes, we're all busy. But ultimately, if we can work together to get that resolved, surely we're saving time. And it is nice to be able to pick up the phone. And also, on the flip of that, if I've ever got any queries or questions, perhaps just about a conveyancing matter in general, I feel comfortable enough to pick up the phone to Michelle and ask those questions. And I think that's also a really good relationship, because we bond together, we work together. As Michelle said, we've got the same ethic, and we've got the same principles. And ultimately, the goal is to get the client through to completion as smooth as we possibly can. And I think clients at the moment, the journey, in my view, is far more stressful than it used to be. And almost that excitement goes at times when they are struggling with that communication part. So if between us we communicate well, that conveys over to the client and there's no problems, there's no wondering, there's no issues. But where that communication link is missing, that's the problem.
So if there is an issue between communication between the estate agent and the conveyancer, what impact is that having on the client? Is it slowing down the process? Is the client feeling like... So for me, for example, I just bought my first house, used Aconveyancing as well, which is amazing. But I was so kind of ignorant and completely unaware of the process, the facts, and I was really reliant on both my estate agent and my conveyancer to kind of like handhold and explain what was going on. And if there was a hold up, you know, again, the communication with me was really key. So when there is sort of an issue between the conveyancer and the estate agent, what impact is that having on the client potentially, Claire?
It's turning to frustration, and ultimately they find their home. It's exciting, it's a dream as such, and we want to ensure that happiness travels throughout the process. So we explain everything up front, we talk them through, and we are a very hands-on agent. So we will guide them through the process, we will tell them the next steps, but ultimately without those updates, and a lot of the time they can't get hold of their own conveyancer. So if them as the client can't get hold of the conveyancer, the chances of us are very slim trying to get hold of the conveyancer. So yeah, the frustration and that whole kind of magical element of buying a house and moving into the dream is somewhat watered down, because you've got that stress and frustration on what is quite a complicated process for somebody who's not moved before.
So for the clients then that really get that dream sort of home move and they've had a really good experience and their conveyancer and the estate agent have worked well together, what does that process then look like? Like what makes that process amazing, and in terms of how the conveyancers and estate agents work together?
So I think just right from the outset, as Claire previously touched on, what we try to do with all of our referrers is allocate them a specific fee earner or a specific fee earners if there's quite a vast amount of work, just to make sure that there's that open relationship, and then subsequently that's passed on to the client. So fee earners are, I mean, the Law Society's average transaction time at the moment, I think, is like 16 to 20 weeks, which is just absolutely ridiculous.
What's that from?
From instruction, so from when contracts are issued up until completion. So when somebody buys a house, they found their dream house, they just want their keys. Like, they don't care. They don't care about the legals, what it takes in between, about the process. They just want their keys. They want to know when they're going to get the keys, and they want them tomorrow. But obviously there is a process that has to be followed. So I think just being transparent, explaining the process to the client, making sure that they understand the different stages of the transaction, and that they're just updated, and that there's that line of communication. They're provided with regular updates. The estate agents are provided with regular updates to be able to assist and manage their expectations more than anything.
With a better understanding of what each other party brings to the process, how would you say, Claire, how do we use these relationships to their full potential?
I think with how passionate we are together, if we use Michelle and I's relationship, I think that then is conveyed into the client. That gives them confidence in us. And ultimately, we save each other time, because if I've got hold of Michelle for an update, for example, I can go back to that client on behalf of both of us with an update. That client is satisfied because they have had an update, whether that's from the conveyancer or whether that's from the agent. They've had that communication and they know what that update is. And I think because Michelle and I's, for example, relationship is very open in terms of if there's a problem, we work through it together, and we're completely transparent and honest. And again, the client is kept in that loop. We have some clients that haven't spoken to their solicitor for weeks, and they've got no idea what's going on, and behind the scenes there's a problem. Now, there's only so much we can do and say as an agent, because we're not a conveyancing professional, and we want to be that middle ground for client and conveyancer. So there's always a good cop and a bad cop, whatever that may be. People do get news that they don't want when they're purchasing. It happens. Sometimes that message needs to come from conveyancers, sometimes it needs to come from agent. But between us both, I think that message comes across to that client really clearly. There's nothing to hide. And ultimately, we're approachable. They can then pick up the phone and they know what's happening and they know what's going on, because we're both on the same page.
I know you mentioned like certain challenges nowadays. I think, from my understanding, a massive benefit to the industry right now is technology. How, and Michelle, maybe you could give us a response on this one. How would you think technology can help support the working relationships between conveyancers and estate agents?
So this is something that me and Claire were talking about a few days ago. So I think it's really exciting in the conveyancing industry at the moment. There's a lot of technology that's being developed, that's coming onto the market, and I think in the future it's going to be really helpful to the process and speed things along. So I think we're currently working with a product that right at the outset is able to pull the details through from the title report, so which like are the deeds of the property. So when Claire, for example, goes to value a property, she can also work with this company and have this documentation. So if there are any issues at the outset of the transaction that she needs to explain to the client, we can get the client instructed when they go on the market as opposed to when they've sold the property, so that we can work in the background and have that issue resolved. So then that will subsequently reduce the amount of time that their transaction takes. So I think it's just working together, recognising, there are issues with titles, or very often if somebody's selling a property as a probate or under a power of attorney, it's about when an estate agent goes to the property, sitting down with the vendor and saying, right, you need these documents, that document, you need to complete these forms, so that they're market ready. As soon as they sell the property, they're ready to go, as opposed to Claire sending an instruction through to us, and then the clients then got to spend 2 to 3 weeks completing their paperwork, providing all their relevant documentation. If their property's unregistered, finding the deeds. You know, these are all the types of things that actually slow down transactions. And I don't think enough, there's a lot of estate agents that are working and very proactive at the outset that do eradicate these issues, but a lot of corporate estate agents, they're just interested about the instruction, they're not interested about the client. They won't have that personal service where they'll go around to the property and explain the issues, and I think that's where it's going wrong. Very often they're affiliated with their own conveyancing firm, so they have to refer the transaction onto their conveyancing firm, who are very often part of the same corporate company, who don't deliver that customer service and won't. And this is probably where the problems come from in trying to get updates, because
absolutely
they're all really heavily workloaded. There's no communication, and they struggle, and it's not their fault. It's because the companies take on too much work, that the conveyancers are only human. And I think if you don't invest in the right technology and the right support for your members of staff, then, you know, it's virtually impossible for them.
Yeah. So currently, and just because I don't know how it all works, do estate agents and conveyancers work in terms of tech on their own separate systems, and there's no sort of one central system that you can drop all your info into and your...
So,
completely separately. So, yeah, we are reliant on speaking to each other or communicating via email, whatever that may be. We are totally reliant on that. So most conveyances, you can call up and ask for an update. Corporate solicitors, for example, you tend to find somebody in a call centre. They'll read the notes off the screen, and if you ask any further questions, they've not got the answer because that's not on the screen.
Really?
So
I didn't know
really
this.
difficult, yeah.
See, as again, like a home buyer, and I think as well for the clients, they don't know that. See, I would assume, you know how in like corporates and stuff, internally, everyone might use like Salesforce or something, which is that internal system that you add notes to every time you speak to, and it's all that information is saved in one place. I assumed that as you'd work together, you'd be working. So this all makes it, no wonder there's issues. Yeah. And as a client, the client would probably be thinking, well, hang on a minute, surely there would be this technology that would make life easier for you both.
Yeah.
And I think this is what it's really evident, actually, like the last couple of months, Managing Director Natalie, she's been working on prop tech in the company, and this is something that she's feels really strong about. So she's
no wonder.
So Natalie's been obviously looking at all the best available products in the market, and just to make sure that we can bring in the products for our company and work together with estate agents and mortgage brokers, that we're all using the same technology, because at the moment there's lots of different, everyone's doing something different, but there's nothing that brings it all together.
You know, when couples go to therapy, and the therapist, if they're having issues, might sit down and say, right, I want each of you to tell the other person, what is your one request, one thing that would just really, really help to make the relationship better. So Claire, if there was, I mean, there might be more than one thing, so feel free to go. But what's sort of the key thing, if you could just speak to all conveyancers on behalf of all estate agents and say, please, could we just be like this?
Be kind, be friendly, be approachable, and we'll all just live a very happy conveyancing estate agency life. There are several conveyancers, solicitors out there that we know as soon as we're delivered their details that it's going to be difficult. There are old school, in my opinion, solicitors and conveyancers out there that you call up and the conversation will be, I don't speak to estate agent, goodbye, and the phone will go down, and it is as harsh as that. And
really?
It is, and there are certain people in the industry that are notorious for that. And I've been an agent 18 plus years, and it's still that kind of knot in your stomach where you think, how are we going to work through this to get this through to completion and try and update the client where we can. And what's really sad, actually, is you will call up perhaps somebody you've not dealt with, and you almost wonder what that response for an update is going to be like. And it's a treat when they're nice and they update you.
It's like
and
literally like trick or treat.
It is. It's such a nice treat that you're almost not expecting it. And I think that's really sad, actually, because we're far more not focused, but we're expecting them to give us either a very short, sharp response or not a response at all. So it's such a breath of fresh air when you speak to somebody new and they do grab the file and they do give you an update, and you almost start that nice relationship between each other that you know is going to work really well throughout the process, and that is a treat in my eyes.
Do you think the stress of the job is what causes that right from the outset, that immediate, it's like the wall's already up? Do you think that's it?
We do get that. We call some solicitors and their response is, I'm too busy. I can't speak to you. I'm too busy. I haven't looked at it and I'm too busy. And it's almost, I understand you're busy, but give me a task. Tell me what you need to do, what you need me to do to make this easier for you, and I'll get straight onto that. And then that saves them a job, perhaps, and saves them a little bit of time, rather than us having to chase them when they don't want to speak to us because they're busy. We're all busy, but ultimately use us a little bit more. We have set time to do sales progression. We progress several times a week. Our clients have an update a minimum of once or twice a week. So if you're busy, whiz me an email, tell me what you're waiting for, tell me what you need. We'll get onto that and we'll do that for you.
Which also, though, and I guess you'll appreciate this, Michelle, you offering that as an agent, that's probably a treat to a conveyancer as well, saying, use me, I'm here to support you. So what would your response, or what would your quick win be?
Just to reiterate what Claire said, like, work together and use each other to help each other out. Ultimately, we've got the same end goal, and just work together and just help each other out. But going back to the estate agent, it is few and far between, and I think a lot of.
Do you mean in terms of getting that sort of?
In terms of getting the assistance from an estate agent as opposed to somebody who's really unhelpful. So boot on the other foot. From solicitor to estate agent, a lot of the referrers that we work with are really helpful and will go the extra mile. But I think that's down to the groundwork and our relationships with them. But then there are estate agents that, instead of helping you out, will deliberately blame the solicitor. Oh, the delays with your solicitor, and this is the issue, and stir the honey pot and make your client's experience a lot more stressful than what it actually needs to be. And that is a major issue for conveyancers across the industry, and I think that needs to change. I think they need it, the blame game needs to stop with estate agents and solicitors, with solicitors and solicitors, and with estate agents and estate agents, because very often there's a chain's delayed because there's an issue somewhere down the chain, but everybody worked together to help that agent and that solicitor out at the bottom of the chain so that the chain can move along and can proceed to exchange and completion. And I think with your property there was an issue in the chain, wasn't there? And I think that was what
there was many.
There was that was what was delaying it. And I think sometimes if you can identify who's in the chain and you've got details on everybody in the chain, pick up the phone and help each other out. And there's all this, you can't jump the chain and you can't go beyond the solicitors. It's not.
I love this conveyancing lingo. You can't jump the chain.
So there's this.
What does that mean?
There's this conception that you can only liaise with the solicitors on your sale and the solicitors on your purchase, and you can't go beyond the chain. So you can't go beyond the solicitor that's helping you out on your sale, for example. But if you know that there's...
Sorry, is that from like you don't want to be stepping on toes?
Yeah, so it's about undermining positions, I get.
God, you guys have got a complicated relationship going on.
But,
wow.
If you know who the person is at the bottom of the chain and they're struggling or they need help, why can't you pick up the phone and help them? And, is there any help? Do you need me to help with anything? Is there anything I can do for you? And I think sometimes in our chains, very often, we're in the chain a couple of times or we can act on either side. And I think that does help because we can help each other and speed the journey along and try and get it completed as quickly as possible.
I think the blame's got to stop. And playing devil's advocate here, I think any agent who blames a conveyancer who's probably getting a bit of an ear bashing off their client has not been updating their client.
No.
I just don't think there's any need to blame a solicitor in terms of if there's a problem and stuff. If your conveyancer is not corresponding with you for several weeks, that's a different issue. But I think when it comes to blame culture, that agent cannot be updating their client and keeping them in the loop if they're getting an ear bashing about something like that. And I do think that's got to stop because that does drive a wedge between agent and conveyancer then.
Yeah,
and we will go up and down the chain as far as we possibly can when we're doing our sales progression. And also, it's sometimes a bit of a breath of fresh air for the agent at the top of a chain where perhaps we're 3 below to speak to somebody that far down in the chain, because then they do get an idea of exactly what's happening and they're not just reliant on the agent below. There are corporate estate agents that have dedicated sales progression teams, which in my eyes, you can call them and they've not progressed for several weeks. Or a great response I had a couple of weeks ago is, I can't chase further up because I won't pass the security questions at the law firm. I was like, I don't understand what that means. You give them the address and the client name and, we move forward. So, yeah, I think that blame culture has got to stop because that does drive the wedge between us and the client.
Honest, as a client, I there is just so much to this. And it also, I'm thinking of it as, there's just 2 of you in the process. Well, no, there's not. Like you were saying, there's all these different cooks, in the kitchen that have to be working together. There is a lot. Just out of interest as well, because I always find when it comes to, because I've, have a corporate background, worked in an office and different departments where you might not ever meet each other or see each other face to face. And then when it comes to the blame game, it's very easy over email or, for that blame to sort of, I don't know, just be done easily, or it kind of be the thing. And until you actually meet or get to know the other person on the other side of it, or maybe you see them face to face, it kind of puts that, we do have a human relationship and we do need to be nice and we do need to be good. Yeah. How often do you sort of see each other? How often do you think conveyancers and estate agents actually get to know each other and to have that sort of relationship? Or is it literally like you don't know anything about one another?
I think in most firms, a lot of conveyancers don't know their estate agents. I think we're different. We make a conscious effort to make sure that we know our referrers and third parties that we work with. And they're not only colleagues, they're like friends, and if there's an issue, obviously we can pick up the phone and discuss them. The management team at Aconveyancing make a conscious effort to visit their referrers. We have charity social events that we invite them all to, and anyone can drop into the office. We very often have estate agents that will drop into the offices and come and say hi, bring cakes in, vice versa. We'll take stuff into, so it's just about being friends and being kind and, again, working together. But I think 9 out of 10 firms wouldn't have that relationship, and I think that, again, needs to change. That's where the issues occur.
Interesting.
And so, a very short relationship in terms of, straight away whether you are going to work well with that conveyancer or solicitor or not. You almost know from the start, 1, from previous relationships, or 2, as the process starts, how easy they are to get hold of, how approachable they are, how forthcoming they are in terms of their updates and things. You pretty much form that relationship straight away, or it's not formed at all.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's really sad because, as you said, we've got a mutual client. We want the process to be as smooth and as seamless as possible. We want to keep that excitement there for the client. We want to leave them with a nice taste in their mouth, not a bad taste, because bad news travels, doesn't it? So, it's a relationship that definitely needs work. But when the relationship is good, it's really good. And that's why we will only refer to Aconveyancing, and we have one other firm that we work to, because we know we've got that mutual appreciation, and they send us brownies sometimes.
And this is it. This is
Who doesn't love a brownie?
It. Who doesn't love a treat? But also, I know because you're both extremely, professional with what you do. You're talking about the impact it has on the client, and from that perspective. But also for you want to go in and enjoy work. You don't want to think, oh, God, I've got to deal with this, or I've got this lovely client and then I've got this horrible relationship with my conveyancer or my agent that then impacts on that. It would just make life nicer and easier for everyone, and your working lives better, wouldn't it?
I think it's such a hard job. It's a very stressful industry.
It is, and it's really tough at the moment.
And I think everybody just needs to respect each other and just have that mutual relationship, because there's nothing worse than having a transaction where you pick up the file and you think, oh God, this is going to be difficult. And I know the girls not even just in Shirley, across the company feel it as well.
Yeah. So everyone, just be kind, please.
Be nice. Be nice.
So finally, looking ahead to 10 years in the future, where everything will, of course, be sunshine and rainbows, and everyone will be best friends and sending each other brownies. I just know it. What would you say what does the relationship look like? I guess we've kind of sort of said what would be the ideal scenario, but maybe like 10 years in the future, as an owner, Claire, of an estates and letting agents, what would you say? What does that ideal relationship look like?
The ideal relationship is working together. There being no barriers between agent and conveyancer. I think there's a very large divide at the moment between us both. I think we all just need to be as one as such, work closely together and convey that to our clients. And ultimately, we're going to have happy clients, we're going to have happy solicitors, and we're going to enjoy coming to work and working together. And I think with all the technology that's going to be put into place as well, then hopefully some of those issues will be rectified by technology. So therefore, the process is far more streamlined. There should be less stress in theory. So hopefully then we can have a far happier relationship.
Brill. Michelle?
I think the technology will have moved forward significantly within the next 10 years. So hopefully that would have more of an impact upon the relationship between solicitors and conveyancers, estate agents, brokers, and that everybody just needs to work together. And I think the more that the technology develops, people will be able to obtain that information, share data with each other, which will subsequently speed up the transactions. The blame game will hopefully shift a little bit. But until conveyancers and estate agents and mortgage brokers learn to work together, nothing's going to change.
Agreed.
And there are organisations out there, the Estes Forum, they're all about collaboration between conveyancers and estate agents and mortgage brokers. And I think it's just getting the word out there and getting more of these professionals to engage in such organisations and work together to make it a more streamlined process.
Absolutely love that. That just made me think as well of Conveyancers for Change.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So we have a Conveyancers for Change Facebook page which shares industry-related issues and problems that everybody can discuss and can engage in to obviously make transactions smoother. If there's anybody who's got any issues that they're struggling with their mental health, that they can openly share that, and hopefully that can provide some sort of answers for people.
But that is a platform as well that is open to estate agents to join.
Yeah.
So it's like everyone in the industry. It's a space
Collaboration
to collaborate, to share if there's been any great achievements, experiences, and I think it is just a case of, as you were saying, like, people just need to work together, but people need to be brought together somehow. And I think this is for everyone in life at the moment. Don't you feel like everyone's gone quite insular. I think
Yeah.
after COVID,
Yeah.
everything going on at the moment with all sorts of crises that we're facing, I think just in general, people are like, well, I've got to think about myself first. And I think people just sometimes forget, actually, if you're just kind and nice,
Yeah, we're all human.
we're all human.
I think after COVID, everybody was like, be kind, and everybody was like, when COVID's over, I'm going to change my outlook on life. I'm going to be this better person. I'm going to be like nicer to people. And I think that has shifted completely in the opposite direction. It's horrific.
Yeah.
Well, that was... I feel like it has been a bit of a therapy session. Do you feel better now? That was honestly such a brilliant conversation, and I really hope that we're going to get loads of listeners from both sides,
Hopefully.
tuning in and dropping some comments and thoughts as well. But hopefully, it will just really encourage everyone to start working together and just communicating more and being kinder. But thank you both so much. I mean, I've learned a lot as a. I have more appreciation for you both now.
That's just scratching the surface. I think we could, you can go a lot deeper, but I think there's so much more. But yeah, just work together and just everybody
Just
be
be
kind.
nice, have a happy relationship, and everybody's happy.
And maybe, hopefully down the line, we can do another episode and we'll get you two back. And there would have been loads of really, positive changes. And you'll be able to report back. Claire's like, yeah.
I really hope so.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah, me too.
Also, now I really want a brownie. So, but no.
Let's see what we can do.
Yeah. Thank you both so much, Claire and Michelle. It's been a fab episode, and hopefully we'll see you on another one soon. Thanks.
Bye.